Welcome to I Had to Say It, the podcast where I talk about things that I feel need talking about, and sometimes they're not getting the attention they deserve. And your feelings, they're not under consideration.
Hi, I'm Ray, self-confessed bookworm, film addict, hermit, long-time depression sufferer, and caffeine fiend. In Not Before Coffee, I talk about everything from books, TV and movies to the more serious topics, like my own personal journey through life, struggling with various mental health issues. But not until I've had at least 3 mugs of the roasted bean and temporarily sated my long-term addiction. So, if you want to get to know more about me and all the ways I pass my time during the week, not including work, and you fancy the idea of hearing me talk about the things that interest me, new books, old books, TV and movies of all kinds, plus the weird and wonderful of my everyday, and how I got into writing about cars for a living despite not having a driving licence, then tune in to Not Before Coffee. Found where all good podcasts are, so pretty much everywhere.
The podcast you are about to listen to contains at least one of the following: strong language, disturbing topics, abusive opinions, generally things that aren't appropriate for little kids or overly sensitive people. So, if any of that stuff's going to get your nose out of joint, this is your chance to turn it off. Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of I Had to Say It. We're going to put something out there first. If this is the first episode you're tuning in for, and I've been noticing a little bit of an uptick in traffic. I've got a lot of my fellow indie podcasters out there plugging away on social media, recommending me a lot. Thanks to everybody that's doing that. I appreciate it. The thing is, if this is your first episode, you may not know entirely what you're getting into here. I mean, I try to make it blazingly clear on everything I do, but there's a really good chance you might hear something that's going to piss you off, and that's fine. You're entitled to your opinions. You're entitled to get upset. I'm a firm believer everybody has that right. Hopefully, if it pisses you off, it's not just going to be a purely emotive reaction, and you're going to actually stop and think. That's really one of my biggest issues with pretty much everybody today is everybody's very knee-jerk, everybody's very reactive, everybody hears something and they're so quick to get offended without actually taking any kind of consideration or thought into the process. And as often as not, they're so eager to read their own shit into what other people are saying that they don't actually get the proper message. They cherry-pick phrases, words, whatever it is that they're looking for to be upset about, and completely miss the point of whatever the statement being made is. So if you are going to listen to my shows, I hope you can be open and minded enough to actually listen. When I was a kid, they used to teach active listening as a skill. It's something that people don't know how to do anymore. You actively consider the things you're hearing. You don't just wait for certain words to get your attention. That being said, today we're going to talk about something that I've been kind of wrestling with my thoughts and feelings about this for a little while, but I want to talk at least briefly about pride. Now, when it comes to things, I don't necessarily see pride as a problem. There's a reason back in the day certain religions said pride was a horrible thing. It's not, but if you have no pride, you're a lot easier to control and manipulate. And well, I am a very spiritual person. I do believe in a higher power, whatever you want to call it. I think all the distinctions are man-made, and I think whatever is out there doesn't really give a damn what we refer to it as. But that's neither here nor there. I'm not trying to pick that particular fight today. I'm trying to talk about why the issues I have with pride. The problem I have with pride, particularly in the context of our modern society, is a lot of people seem to be really proud of shit they have literally nothing to do with. I kind of subscribed to, a long time ago, George Carlin said something, and it rang so true when I was a kid, and it's kind of been in the back of my mind for my entire life, is pride should be reserved for accomplishments. You should take a sense of pride in things you did, something you earned, something that that you were involved in. That's what you're proud of. You can be happy about anything you want. You can enjoy whatever you want. And this is where people are going to get pissed off. This is where the people that don't listen to what I'm saying and just listen for the trigger words are going to start getting their noses out of joint. And a lot of people are going to jump to conclusions without actually hearing me out and hearing what I have to say. And a lot of people are going to make assumptions about the kind of person I am without actually knowing a damn thing about me, or most likely even having listened to any of the prior episodes that would pretty much establish through the door where I stand on things like people's worth. And if you want to be mad at me, I'm not going to lose any sleep over it. One of the things I really don't understand how anyone can take any pride in the matter, and this is where the statement's going to come out that's really going to flip the switches, is I have a really hard time getting my head around the concept of racial pride. And I'm saying that all-encompassingly. I don't understand white pride. I don't understand black pride, brown pride, yellow pride, purple pride, green pride. I don't give a damn which particular color of the rainbow you're identifying with. You're being proud for something you literally had no influence over and you had nothing to do with other than random chance. And I don't get it. And before anybody starts trying to send me messages flagging me out, calling me a racist because I listed everybody besides my own group, I'm including my own group in that thing. And I understand that a Black Pride movement was started trying to reclaim the humanity after being treated as property for so many generations in a really shitty circumstance. But the way it is handled in our culture today, I'd have to double check, but outside of sex trafficking, I'm pretty sure there's nobody left alive who was a legally owned slave in this country. I could be wrong. If I'm wrong, I apologize, and I mean no disrespect to whatever 100-plus-year-old individual is out there that was at one point traded as property. That's a shitty thing, and it's terrible, and I'm sorry you had to go through it. But the way it's being handled in our culture today is being done in a purely divisive manner. It's not about reclaiming equality anymore. It's ethnic pride is handled in our culture. And honestly, the way I'm saying this, I'm saying it across the board. Basically, anything that has pride in a basis of ethnocentricity, because by definition, that is an exclusive concept. Because in our culture, unfortunately, that's the way it's handled. Everyone acts like you can't be proud of one thing without being opposed to everything that's not that thing. And by doing so, without adding that caveat that you're applying to the crackers like myself, where you have to have a subset. You have to say a specific country or culture that you're proud of. Because without that qualification, there's some sort of inherent racism just in the standard, well, I'm just proud of my pigmentation. And when it's handled differently like that for different groups, it gives the shittier people out there who want to make it a defining issue something to point at. It makes it easier to play that reverse racism card, or that however you want to look at it, where some shitty people that want to be exclusionary and disruptive are going to point to the fact that they're not allowed to do the same thing that somebody else is doing and say instead now they're being discriminated against. It's just such a loaded fucking way to handle something that realistically shouldn't be an issue. If we were all decent people, we wouldn't even have to worry about any of this crap. The way it's being handled now is fueling the fire. It's not making things better. It's not making things equal. It's not putting things on an even footing. It's just driving a bigger wedge into things. Because the people who do have a problem with it are pointing to it as an example of why it's wrong. And besides the fact that I generally don't support any concept that encourages division among the population, you know, rich versus poor, black versus white, any of this horse shit that is really an artificial construct that's a societal and a mental issue. Because if you peel us all down, we're all gross underneath the outside layer. So why don't we look at what's inside? Because it's pretty disgusting regardless of what your genetic background is. And the people who stump for these things, really stump for them, are generally the ones that have the most to gain by us not getting together and getting on the same page. I'm all for pride based on merit. I genuinely don't give a shit what your genetic background is as far as your complexion or where your ancestors came from. That has nothing to do with you, and I don't judge you based on that. If you're a decent person, that's really all that matters to me. And if you do good things and you want to be proud of those things, the other shit is completely irrelevant. Pride in your accomplishments is a fantastic thing. Me, I don't give a shit about being a white guy, other than the fact that I am fully aware and acknowledge that in our society I do have a certain degree of extra wiggle room just because of that fact. If I get pulled over, I'm not instantly afraid somebody's going to shove a baton up my ass. It's a real thing. I don't disavow or say it's false. It's the truth. It's a shitty thing. I really wish people could be viewed as people, and that's it. The problem I have is when you try and extol your own virtues and your own dignity without acknowledging that other people are entitled to feel the same way or to have the same rights, it stops being about equality. It stops being about fairness or justice. It becomes an issue of we deserve this and you don't. And it's not based on merit or anything beyond simple circumstance again. So I don't understand how taking this sense of accomplishment over something you had nothing to do with is okay for some groups but not for others. Honestly, even if it was applied unilaterally and across the board and every single person was allowed to say they were proud of their, color or whatever, I would still think it's stupid. You don't need to be proud of something you had no control over. You had no choice in the matter. It wasn't an option you made and you did a good job. It's random. It's just a circumstance. I like to think the progress is a good thing. We're getting better. We're getting to the point where we are, as a whole, starting to actually judge each other based on the quality and content of our character rather than shit we have no control over. We have come a little farther in acceptance of people based without factoring in their appearance, without factoring in, we still have standards of beauty and all this other shit, and I'm a firm believer some of that is genetically hardwired for certain traits that are from the way life used to be, statistically more useful in propagating your line. I do believe we are motivated to a large part by genetic memory when it comes to those things, looking for the most profitable breeding partners to continue our DNA. I think it's just how we're coded. But we've made some good progress. A lot of us have been able to see past stupid, petty hang-ups on shit. And that's a good thing. But anyway, so we're going to take a little pause here. I'll stick in the usual mid-reel spiel. And we'll be back in a couple of minutes where I will continue my inane babbling.
I'm Mo Rocca, and I'm excited to announce Season 4 of my podcast, Mobituaries. I've got a whole new bunch of stories to share with you about the most fascinating people and things who are no longer with us. From famous figures who died on the very same day, to the things I wish would die, like buffets. All that and much more. Listen to Mobituaries with Mo Rocca wherever you get your podcasts.
All right, so if you're still plugging along with me on this one, thanks for taking the time to listen to that, and thank you for coming back and listening to the rest of this. If I haven't managed to piss you off enough where you've turned the show off by now, good on you. Thank you for being a little open-minded and willing to listen. And so anyway, this brings me back to my original statement here. I really think it's a decent thing to be proud of yourself. It shouldn't be something that's stigmatized or treated like a negative. It shouldn't be a sin as long as it is something that is based on merit. If it is being proud of something you've done, being proud of something that is not going to somehow marginalize or detract from another person, that is a useful pride. That is a functional pride. That is pride that is merited and decent. Like I said, as long as you're not extreme with it, as long as you're not going to the I'm proud that I'm awesome and you are a piece of shit. And it's entirely okay to think somebody's a piece of shit. I think a lot of people are pieces of shit. If you listen to this program for any length of time, you are fully aware that there are plenty of people out there that I really don't care for. Now, granted, my distaste and the kind of petty irritation I feel with people is generally based on a case of, it's case by case, but it's generally because you're stupid, inconsiderate, selfish, or rude. Those are my big buttons. Those are the ones that push. Now, those have sub-factors like being an entitled little twat, and it does happen. It happens a lot. It happens more frequently and with greater severity, and it needs to be checked. I've said all of this before. And that's a whole nother thing, but realistically, if you want to be proud of something, it needs to be something you did. You can be glad about things. You can be happy about circumstances. You can be thrilled that you can be, they say Irish pride. How about I'm happy to be Irish? And I'm not Irish either, but I'm just using that as the closest thing I can think to an example that actually fits, that won't automatically have me labeled as a intolerant, racist asshole, because I'm really not. I am intolerant. I am very intolerant of a lot of shit, but it is all things people have control over in their lives. And as long as I'm being forthright about the whole thing, I'm an asshole too. I really am. I understand it. I'm comfortable with that. I am an asshole. But if I'm an asshole to you, you probably did something to deserve it. You control how you're going to interact with other people. You control whether or not you're going to shove your head in the sand and just blindly accept things. You control if you're going to walk around being this entitled little shit. Those are things I will hold you accountable for. Those are things I will take you to task for. Those are things that will piss me off. Are you a good person? That's really the only thing that carries any weight in my book. And it's just, like I said, I've said it so many times, I don't understand how we have these hang-ups. But I kind of do understand how we have these hang-ups, because things like this come up, and there are people out there actively driving this division and actively trying to push people into valuing the wrong things. And if you look at it, a lot of it's not even really like well disguised. These are not master manipulators. These are people that prey on the most basic level of things that they can find, because they are basic people. Their own hatreds and their own hang-ups and their own, I'm going to be pissed off about shit that was literally nothing to do with me and nothing to do with anything I directly did, and I'm going to pick this hill to fight on and this hill to die on. And like I said, I mean, there's a lot of things. We need change. We need things like social justice reform. We need police reform, legal reform. We need political reform. This country is well and truly boned if we keep on the path we're on. And that path includes all the people that think they're trying to fix things by going to the complete polar extremes. And these divisions are just being fanned and flamed and brought to such a heated tipping point that I don't feel like it's going to end well. And the problem is, well, one of the problems, there's a myriad issues we need to address in our culture. But one of the big problems is that nobody has these conversations. Nobody's willing to talk these things out. Nobody's willing to look deeper than that surface level. All the surface levels that they get hung up on, and just they're willing to scratch the surface on petty little shit to be divided over, is pretty indicative of the deeper mindset about these things, because going beyond the surface of anything is hard. It's uncomfortable. It requires a deeper look, and you may have to acknowledge some uncomfortable truths about yourself, and a lot of us are afraid to do that. So instead, we take pride in shit that we have no reason to be proud of. We take comfort in the simple act of saying, this is something I can identify with and find merit in, when from a purely objective standpoint, there's no merit to it. It has no real impact on something's worth or value beyond that surface petty level. We need to stop being hung up on this superficial shit. It's not getting us anywhere. It's not making the world a better place. And it's real easy for the people that do have a slightly deeper understanding and a willingness to look a little deeper to shuffle those of us who aren't willing to look a little deeper around. If you can point to some real simple superficial shit that even the slightest examination will actually crumble apart and get people to react to that without actually looking at it, you've got it made. You've got the number dialed in. You found the golden ticket. You're going to push that button because it's going to get the result you want. And deeper motivations and things like that don't occur to people because they're uncomfortable, because they don't want to look at them. Because it might involve admitting that you are happy with the petty bullshit. You are happy with these divisions and these separations because you want to be proud. You want to feel special. You want to feel involved, but you don't want to put in the work. Or if you do put in the work, you want your work to be acknowledged, but you think it's kind of rude or inconsiderate that someone else wants the same thing. And again, I'm not aiming this at any one particular group. I'm aiming it at every fucking group. The level of just constant division on this planet, and I'm saying literally on a global scale, we all need to come together and realize we're all people. There are variations. There is an assortment, a rainbow, a whatever you want to call it. Every conceivable mix and blend is probably somewhere, does exist probably somewhere on this planet. There is, and yes, there are isolated tribes that have shown unique genetic markers and all these other things that we're just now figuring out the science to figure these things out. But at the end of the day, they're still people. We all still have the same basic wants, the same basic needs, the same basic drives and desires. We all want to be happy. We all want to be loved. We all want to be fed and healthy. We need to start focusing on the shit we all have in common, the things we all want. And if you want to be proud of something, because we all want to feel that sense of accomplishment, if you want to take that and own that and hold it up and say, this is why I should be treated this way, make sure it's actually something you had something to do with. Don't try and be proud of someone else's accomplishments unless it's your kids or your family or someone you directly influenced in those accomplishments. Teachers can be proud of their students. Parents can be proud of their children. Friends can be proud of friends if they helped them out and lifted them up. I'm actually really proud every time I find out one of the shows whose hosts I've started interacting with online. I'm really proud when they hit some milestone. And I'm happy for them. I mean, I'm not proud of myself. I'm proud of them. I'm like, hey, these guys are doing great. I think that's amazing. I don't really acknowledge that I had anything to do with it. I don't think I do. I think they're standing on their merit, and I'm happy for them. So maybe I'm not necessarily proud of them. I'm proud of my kid. I think my wife and I did a pretty damn fine job on him. He turned out to be a really respectable young man. He's got a great work ethic. He's got a really solid moral core. He's a decent human being. He's accepting. He's got a good heart. He turned out pretty damn good, and I'm proud of that fact. And I'm proud of everything he does because he's a good person. He's got a good heart. He works his ass off for everything he wants, and I'm really proud of my kid. But I had something to do with that. That was partly my influence. I mean, there's no way I can claim all of it. He's a product of his family, his mother, and myself, his grandparents, his teachers helped and do that. We all should get to own a little piece of that. And more importantly, he should be proud of himself. And I'm going off on a complete rail here, but those are the things that matter. That's where we need to focus. It's not this other bullshit. It's not anything that just random chance handed us. That's not the stuff you need to be proud of. That's the stuff you need to appreciate. You need to value your life. You need to value whatever happens to make it a little easier. Yeah, value it. Appreciate it. Don't be proud of it. Don't sit there and if you're trying to overcome some stuff that's making your life shittier, address the issues. Don't try and slap a Band-Aid on it by saying it's okay that I have this but you don't. Don't push division. It's really the crux of what I'm saying here. We need to let things go, not harbor them, not let these things fester and ferment and make things worse. I'm not saying don't acknowledge terrible shit that happens. I'm not saying don't acknowledge systemic injustices and things like that, because that is just as bad, but don't overreact. And I know there's a lot of people that have been pushed to breaking points about a lot of things, and I completely understand. I have been pushed to the breaking point about things myself. I have broken about some things. But that's not the issue here. And yeah, so I kind of went off on a little tangent there, sorry. But realistically, the whole overall message ties together. It all kind of comes back to the same thing. If you want to be proud of something, be proud of something. But be proud of something you did. Be proud of something you had some control over. Don't be riding other people's coattails. Don't be proud of shit you had nothing to do with. Don't be proud of things that happened to you through pure circumstance. And if you're going to take these things that are circumstantial at best and realistically grasping at straws at worst, and you're going to use them to be a divisive, shitty person, then you need to go out and you need to go play in traffic. And for now, that's what I had to say. Thanks for listening to another episode of I Had to Say It. If you liked what you heard, leave a review, give us a follow, give me some feedback. And if you didn't like what you heard, leave a review, give me a follow, give me some feedback. I'll try and fix it. Check us out on all the social media platforms. At I Had to Say It podcast is the trigger for all that stuff, for the search term. And if you want, check out the website, www.ihadtosayitpodcast.com. There's links to people that have been involved with the program, things I've talked about. There are some links available for some merch that we're working on, and there are ways to contact us there as well. And thanks for listening, and I look forward to talking to you again soon.